Welcome to the AirGain podcast, Episode 3, Super Saver Fare and How It Shaped the Future of Pricing Strategy. Today we're going way back to the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
Land of bell-bottoms and disco.
Fun times.
But we're actually talking about something maybe not as groovy as disco, but definitely reshaped how we fly today. Airline deregulation.
Not as groovy, but super important.
Yeah, just picture this. A world where ticket prices, they weren't set by, the usual supply and demand,
Right.
but by the government.
It's wild to think about how different things were.
It is. It's a totally different world. So we have you with us today to help us break it all down. Give us some of that expert insight.
Happy to be here. It's definitely a fascinating period to look back on.
So airlines back then, totally different landscape, right?
Oh, yeah, completely. This regulated environment, it meant that, well, carriers weren't exactly, fighting tooth and nail to offer the cheapest fares.
They didn't really have to, did they?
Not really. They were comfy,
Yeah, comfortable, right?
But then, boom, deregulation hits the scene in 78.
Throws everything upside down.
Major tailspin, and suddenly you have these upstart airlines like People Express
I've heard of those guys.
offering crazy cheap fares like rock bottom.
And the big guys, the established airlines like American Airlines, they're all like, wait, what's happening?
Total scramble, right? They had to figure out how to compete and fast.
Adapt or die kind of situation.
Pretty much. And that's where the Super Saver fare comes in.
Super Saver sounds so simple.
Deceptively simple.
Right. But I'm guessing it was way more than just like a simple discount.
Way more. It was a whole strategy full of these innovations that not only saved American Airlines, but, it changed how we buy, well, everything.
No way. Really?
Oh, yeah. From hotels to concert tickets, even.
I had no idea. That is amazing.
It all goes back to that Super Saver fare.
All right, so let's break down this genius Super Saver fare. What was the big secret?
Well, they needed to attract those leisure travelers looking for a deal, but without, scaring away the business travelers who, well, they generally pay more.
Right, makes sense. So how'd they do that?
Okay, so one of the big things was this: advance purchase requirement. You had to book your tickets weeks ahead of time to get those super low fares.
So if you planned ahead, you got rewarded.
Exactly. It made those leisure travelers commit early, and it kept seats open for those last-minute business travelers.
Who were probably willing to pay a premium.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like a chess game.
Yeah, totally. Anticipating everyone's moves.
And then wasn't there that other rule, the minimum stay?
Oh, yeah, the infamous Saturday night stay requirement. Classic.
I think I've heard some stories about that one.
I bet. It was another clever tactic, though, you see. The thinking was business travelers, they won't usually stay over the weekend.
Right. Got to get back home.
Exactly. So requiring a Saturday night stay made those discounted fares, well, less appealing to them. And boom, those Super Saver seats, leisure travelers snagged them up.
Brilliant. So they really understood their customers.
They did, and they used it to their advantage.
But hold on. They didn't offer all their seats at Super Saver prices.
Oh, no. Can you imagine?
That would be chaos.
Financial suicide. The key was managing how many seats were available at each price point. It's like a bakery.
A bakery?
Yeah. They wouldn't fill the whole display case with day-old bread just because they could sell it cheaper.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
They need room for those fancy cakes and pastries, the high-margin stuff. American Airlines, same idea, different product.
That's a great analogy. So they had to balance filling seats with, actually making money.
Striking that balance is key. But there's one more piece to this Super Saver puzzle, something that, well, it really blew me away when I first learned about it.
Yeah.
Dynamic pricing.
Dynamic pricing. Okay, I think I know where we're headed with this.
This is where Super Saver gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the price of a Super Saver ticket, it wasn't fixed. It could change, fluctuate based on demand.
Wait, they were doing this back in the 70s, before all the, fancy algorithms and big data we have now.
Yep. Pretty remarkable, right? Way ahead of their time.
They were pioneers. It's like the foundation for all those pricing models we see today, ride sharing, concert tickets, all that.
Exactly. They laid the groundwork.
But how did they even know how to price those tickets back then? What kind of data were they using?
That's where things get even more interesting. They were developing this revolutionary approach behind the scenes. It's what we now call yield management.
Yield management. Sounds pretty technical.
It is, but the core idea is actually pretty simple. Use data to make smarter decisions about pricing and inventory. American Airlines started meticulously, and I mean meticulously, collecting data. They looked at everything, booking patterns, seasonality, all sorts of factors to figure out how many people would want to fly, where, and when.
So they were letting the data guide their decisions, not just going with gut feeling.
Exactly. It was a major shift in thinking for the industry. And they got pretty good at it, too.
So what else was part of this yield management system? Give me the details.
So remember the bakery analogy? They had to be strategic about how many seats were allocated to each fare class.
Right, right. Like not too many discounted seats, otherwise they'd lose money.
Exactly. They developed these systems to make sure they had the right mix of fares available all the time to squeeze every bit of revenue out of each flight.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare, trying to find that perfect balance between filling seats and, making a profit.
It was, and it still is. But they were pioneers, figuring it all out for the first time. And they didn't stop there.
Okay, what else?
They were constantly watching their competitors, especially those low-cost carriers, breathing down their neck.
Had to keep up.
Absolutely. They had to stay competitive on price, but also avoid triggering a price war that would hurt everyone.
It's like a constant balancing act, right?
A high-stakes game of strategy.
But it worked, didn't it? I mean,
Huh?
this Super Saver fare, it really changed the whole airline industry, right?
Oh, absolutely. The success was undeniable. They started filling more seats, which of course boosted their profits. And other airlines saw what was happening and realized they had to adapt or get left behind.
It's like they cracked the code and everyone else wanted in on the secret.
Exactly. It was a game changer. And it really changed how airlines saw their customers.
What do you mean by that?
Before Super Saver, airlines kind of treated everyone the same. But with revenue management, they started realizing that different travelers had different needs.
Oh, I see. Like some people prioritize price, others want flexibility, and so on.
Exactly. And they could tailor their pricing and services accordingly. It's what we call market segmentation.
So instead of one size fits all, they started creating different options for different types of travelers.
Precisely. And this idea spread like wildfire. Beyond just airlines. Hotels, car rentals, e-commerce, even healthcare. They've all adopted these principles.
It's amazing how one idea, this Super Saver fare, had such a ripple effect.
It really highlights how interconnected the business world is. But before we get into how these ideas spread, let's talk about the technology that made it all possible.
All right, lay it on me. What was the tech behind all of this?
It's all thanks to American Airlines' SABRE system.
SABRE, that was their reservation system, right?
It started that way, but it quickly became something much bigger.
Oh, tell me more.
SABRE let American Airlines analyze booking patterns, track inventory in real time, even adjust prices on the fly. It was like having a crystal ball that could predict demand.
It gave them a huge advantage.
It did, and it paved the way for the sophisticated systems we use today, the AI-powered algorithms and all that.
It's like the grandfather of all those modern revenue management systems.
Absolutely, a true trailblazer. But, SABRE and the Super Saver fare, they weren't without their critics.
Oh, really? What were the downsides?
Well, all those rules and restrictions, they can be really confusing for travelers.
Yeah.
There was one rule, I remember, that forced people to fly to a specific hub airport before reaching their final destination, even if a direct flight was available.
Seriously.
Seriously. It was all about maximizing revenue, but definitely not the most customer-friendly approach.
No, you can imagine the frustration.
And then there was dynamic pricing, which could sometimes lead to these intense price wars between airlines.
So it wasn't always a smooth ride.
Not always. And then, of course, there was the issue of transparency. With prices constantly changing, it was hard for people to understand why fares were fluctuating so much.
It all felt a bit unpredictable.
Definitely. So you see, the Super Saver fare and revenue management, it was a double-edged sword. Innovation and efficiency, but also new complexities and challenges.
It makes you think about the trade-offs, doesn't it?
It does. But before we move on, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the lasting legacy of the Super Saver fare.
Well, it seems like it wasn't just about cheap flights. It changed how businesses think about pricing, about managing supply and demand. It's remarkable how such a seemingly simple idea had such a profound impact.
It is, and it's a testament to the power of creative problem solving. All right, so let's pick up where we left off and unpack how this Super Saver legacy, it went beyond the airlines. It really took root in other industries.
Yeah, and I'm thinking hotels. Because, man, those prices can swing wildly.
Oh, tell me about it. You're absolutely right. It's like sometimes you need a PhD in math just to find a decent hotel deal.
Seriously, what's going on there?
Well, hotels, they saw what American Airlines was doing, and they thought, hey, we can do that too.
I mean, it makes sense, right? They both have limited inventory. They're both trying to maximize profits.
Bingo. Hotels went all in on revenue management, like big time. They got really good at analyzing data, looking at historical trends, booking patterns.
So they're not just pulling prices out of thin air. They're actually using data to make those decisions.
Absolutely. It's all about predicting demand and optimizing their revenue based on all sorts of factors. Occupancy levels, what's happening in the area, local events, even what their competitors are charging.
So it's like a strategic game almost.
It is. It is. And then on top of that, they add those little things like minimum stay requirements, advanced purchase discounts, different room categories, all designed to segment the market and, well, make more money.
It's kind of like, how that fancy suite with the ocean view might cost way more than a standard room, even though the actual cost difference for the hotel isn't that much, right?
Exactly. It's about perceived value and what people are willing to pay for that extra something special. But you know where the real legacy of the Super Saver Fair shines?
I'm intrigued. Tell me.
E-commerce, the online world.
Really? How did a concept from the airline industry make its way to the digital world?
It's remarkable, actually, how those core principles of Super Saver translated so well online. E-commerce companies are like masters of revenue management now.
They're using all those algorithms and data analytics to personalize prices and optimize their sales, right?
Precisely. It's like Super Saver evolved and went digital.
So what does that look like in practice? Give me some examples.
Well, think about flash sales. They're everywhere online now, right?
Oh, yeah, those limited time offers. Got to act fast.
That's the limited inventory tactic we talked about before. Create a sense of urgency, boost sales.
It's effective. Got to give them that.
And then there are personalized discounts. They track your browsing history, what you've bought before, even where you are, and they tailor those offers to you.
So they're like trying to predict what I want before I even know I want it.
In a way, yes. And behind the scenes, they're constantly testing different pricing strategies, analyzing data, tweaking those algorithms to squeeze out every last dollar.
It's a bit Big Brother-ish, isn't it?
It can feel that way for sure, but it's not always about, manipulating consumers.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from those early days of Super Saver to its impact on, well, just about every industry you can think of.
It's a pretty remarkable story of how a simple idea can spark a revolution.
What's next? What's the future of all this revenue management stuff? Is it here to stay, or is it like a fad that's going to fade away?
That's the big question everyone's asking.
Right.
But if I had to guess, I'd say, oh yeah, revenue management it's here to stay for sure.
Okay. So you're thinking it's not going anywhere?
Definitely not. And with technology, advancing so fast, it's probably going to become even more, more sophisticated.
So more algorithms, more data, more personalized pricing?
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, imagine a future where, like, every price tag you see is tailored just for you, based on, like, your preferences, your spending habits, everything.
Ooh, that's a little scary, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. I mean, we're already seeing that hyper-personalization online, websites remembering what you've looked at, what you've bought.
Yeah, it's creepy.
But as AI gets even better, well, who knows where it'll go.
So it's all about taking control, not just letting the algorithms control us.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up, I want to, leave our listeners with something to think about. As you go about your day, pay attention to those prices you see. The coffee you buy, your bus fare, those online ads, even healthcare costs. It's all connected to revenue management in some way.
It's everywhere, shaping the marketplace, even if we don't realize it.
And as technology keeps evolving, it's going to become even more prevalent.
No doubt about it.
So the question is, are we ready for it? Can we harness its power for good while avoiding the potential pitfalls? It's something we all need to be thinking about.
I agree. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity.
Well said. And that's a wrap for today's deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you learned something new about the fascinating world of Super Saver and the power of revenue management.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the topics that matter.
And keep an eye on those prices.
See you next time.